you want one water to be clean and one water to be dirty. Okay, so that way, with these pigments, if you continually use the same color water, it's going to turn your whole painting that color. All right, so everybody should have their watercolor palettes. There are 2 containers of water. You'll see a white palette in front of you. That's where what's called your mixing palette. Okay, we're going to start first with this top sheet. Hopefully everybody's put their name on it. Please put your name. And just like in drawing, we want to get in the habit of, before we start painting on our watercolor, all of your compositions are going to be, I have it up here, it's 8 by 12, or 9 by 12, excuse me, and it's high quality watercolor paper that we're going to be using. And you're going to be able to use all these techniques that we're practicing today. So with your pencil, you're going to lightly copy this picture of the cube. So if you haven't had me in drawing, I really try to emphasize the importance of drawing lightly. See how light this is? So this gives us a guide to paint from, but also it's light enough that it's not going to show through our paint. Okay? So almost like a coloring book, our outlining guide. We also want to get in the habit of, when we're doing still life, if we don't have this shadow, this drop shadow, our objects are going to float in space. So we need to incorporate that shadow. Okay, so if everybody can please do that. Hopefully everybody got paper towels. I'm going to move this up higher because I feel like it's difficult to see. All right. And now with your palette, I want you to choose a darker color. Blue, red, purples are good. Stay away from lighter colors. After we've outlined our shapes, you're going to dip your paintbrush in the water and activate the paint, and you can bring it over here to your palette. So I'm going to put this down so you can see it better. You guys can see me walking. And there's a diagram below of an example of a watercolor you can see. So we use this as a palette. So there's 2 ways of working. You can either add more pigment to it to make it darker. You can also go the opposite way, and you can add water to it to make it lighter. So it's, instead of how we practiced before using white to tint the paint, we're using water to lighten the paint, okay? So the first step that you're going to do, if we look at the cube, the front part, left part, is the lightest part of the cube. That's where the light is coming from. So we're going to leave that white. On top, we're going to paint a light layer, a light wash. That's the top. Then we're going to go back, and with watercolors, we have to kind of work in layers from light to dark. I want you to get a lot of pigment on your brush. And I want you to next do that shadow on the bottom. And look how dark that's going to be. That's the darkest value. So fill that in. And the reason why we're kind of jumping around is because we want to avoid the water kind of bleeding into each other. If you paint wet next to wet, it bleeds into each other and you lose those shapes. So I have a light layer, my highlight. And the next thing I'm going to do is add more water to that color. And now I'm going to paint that side. It's going to be darker. And I want to be really careful as I go up not to touch the other shapes or it's going to bleed. So just going right up to that edge. There we go. So that's a good example of how to get value from light to dark. So the light here will show up more too if I do a light wash. The background is actually darker, so this cube will stand out if I actually put that wash in the background. Just a little bit. And this paint works the same way as our tempera works. So if you guys look at the picture up on the screen on the right that I have, they actually layered, after it dried, they went back and layered the complement blue into that orange. So we can actually, you could layer that on top of that to add more variation. And down here I put this for, you guys are more advanced in my other painting classes, so this is the same thing as our color tower. This is the lightest value. It's okay. That's why we're practicing now. Medium value to dark. So it's just painting with value, but instead of adding white, we're using water. Okay, and this paper pools because we're just practicing, but when we use the watercolor paper, you're going to get much better results. So make sure you put your name on that and set that aside to dry. We're just practicing the value first. And now I'd like you to get the next sheet. Okay? And we're going to kind of move around the paper to help with the drying speeds. It's going to work. Please write your name on this as well. So the first technique that I want you to practice is called, well, okay, people are still painting, right? You guys can wash your brush out. Remember, use the dirty water to wash it off. Then use your paper towel to wipe your brush clean. So we're going to get ourselves set up for this project, for this paper. I would like you guys to get clean water and get some yellow. And I want you to paint 3 to 4 yellow lines in this bottom left glazing section. If your color is dirty, you just use water to clean off the top, to wash it off, and it'll fall down the side. So 3 to 4 lines going across. Then I would like you, on the right where it says negative, please fill that whole space in. Just a light wash of yellow. I don't care if you go over the lines. Then clean your brush in the dirty water. Yeah, I do too. I used to not like yellow, but now I love yellow. I think because like growing up, everything like hospitals and things were all yellow, and so I associate it with like being sick. So the next technique we're going to do is called dry brush, and I want you to use a darker color for this. If you have too much water it won't come out right. So you want to use the paper towel to get all the water off. You can even touch it with your finger and make sure. So dry brush, we're going to rub the brush over the cake. That's already kind of damp. And we're basically going to use, it's called dry brush because we're doing what it says. We're not using water, and we're just rubbing the pigment onto the page. And so it creates, I would use a darker color so it shows up. If your brush is dry, like see, like you wash it off like this. Well, if your brush is dry, just a little bit. And this is a good technique to use. So, like, if you have an animal, like a stuffed animal that has hair, or something that has texture, like cactus, or this is something good. So, like, you could paint the base like light green or whatever color it is, and then the dry brush technique would be good to be over it to give your object like hair or texture. You could do that with anything, with dots, whatever. So that's called dry brush for texture. So it gives the hairs. Look, you can see the hairs, but if it's too wet, you can see in the demo I did last hour or the first hour that had too much water in my brush. That's what it looks like. I always like having a side piece of paper as I'm working in watercolors to kind of practice whatever I'm doing before I put it on my final paper. Watercolor is really unpredictable, and we have to work light to dark. So I was trying to get you guys in the habit of doing that. The next thing we're going to do, you're going to dip your brush in the clean water, and you're going to get some paint on your brush. I'm just sticking with blue. And we're doing wet on dry. So that means the paper is dry, and I'm going to put wet pigment down in my square. That's called wet on dry. So there's no water on the paper. It's just the pigment straight to the paper. And this is going to be different for the next technique because this is straight onto the paper, remember, with no water. The next one is going to be different because we're going to prepare the paper with water. So the next thing we're going to do is clean out your brush. Make sure you dab it off with your paper towel. And you want to get clean water. And so I talked about we're going to put water down onto the square. And the water is actually going to pull the pigment around. And I think this is kind of fun because you really can't control what it's going to look like. So with your clean water, you're going to put down the water in that square. And then just start picking colors. So I'm getting purple first, and then watch what I'm doing. If you're going to drop, get water on your brush and get paint going, and then drop it into that water. You see how the water starts pulling those pieces. Clean off your brush again. Pick another color. And this is I love doing this like for backgrounds, like creating texture. And you're going to notice as the colors start to pull together, they're gonna bleed a little bit, and that's okay. It's gonna get fuzzy. You could do as many colors as you want. I'm gonna choose pink for the next one. You can choose any color you want. We put water down first, and then you're getting water in your brush and pulling it into this is called pulling it into your paint. So you put it over the cake like this, you see? And you get paint going, and then you can drop it right into the wet. Every palette's different, but I'll have every color later. This is just for practice. Don't worry about it. All right? Well, pink is also, remember, light red with more water added to it. Yeah, this is one of my favorite ones. In painting too, we're going to be using other techniques. We use salt and things, and salt will also give us a similar effect. And so we're going to put the next layer on our glazing now that the yellow has dried. So I want you to pick a different color from the yellow, and now you're going to go and I want you to make lines going in the opposite direction. This is called glazing. That's called glazing. We're going to do a couple of different lines. So basically you have to always wait till the first layer is dry. The next one we're going to practice is called a flat wash. So flat wash is where you take your brush, get it in the water, get it in the pigment, and you're going to get it pulled up on your palette like this. And we're going to do a flat wash. Flat wash, okay? Graded wash is similar, but this time it's just like what we did with wet on wet. We're going to start with our clean water first, and we're going to put our water down onto the palette, water onto the palette, and then we're going to take that color we just made, and about halfway on that bar, we're going to lightly start adding that color and go all the way to the top or the bottom, it doesn't matter which way. And then at the top, we want to keep adding more pigment so it gets darker. So it basically looks like monochromatic color from light to dark. So you start with the light color first to help get those midtones. Start with the water first. It's okay, that's what we're practicing first. Water first, then you slowly build up from light to dark. Now that we have our yellow dried too for the negative, let's go ahead and do that. So just pick a letter. I picked my last name or my first name. You want to get a darker color than yellow. And you're going to outline whatever letter you chose. I'm going to choose K for Coach Kenny. She just came in. You can use any color you want. It just needs to be darker. And then after you get that outline, then you're going to fill in the negative space. This is called negative space. So for example, when you're drawing the objects, you could do like a light wash first, and then go lay in your shadows or the background color so that it'll make your objects, it'll bring your objects forward in the composition. Okay, that's negative. We can also, now that our second layer to the glazing was done, let's hop over there and put another layer on our glazing. So I'm going to try, you can do any colors you want. I just did primaries for this one. This is the primary triad. Glazing is really pretty. So it's a really nice quality with watercolors that it's so transparent you're going to see all the different layers. The next one we're going to practice is you're going to get your brush clean and then get clean water. And we're going to do, it's called variegated wash. What'd you make? Is that it? Awesome.
Back there.
Awesome.
Checking out what we did.
Oh yeah, it's fun. Watercolor. We're learning how to do watercolors. That's why I was stressed. I'm like, how's everyone going to finish this with everything being propped on us?
We'll get them.
I know. So, you're going to lay down a light coat of water. Then I want you guys, this is basically, we're going to be making a light color go to a dark color. So let's start with yellow. We're going to put yellow in. And I want to go to the next color, which is orange. If you started with green, go to blue. The next color in the color wheel. I'm going to bring that all the way down. And the next color after orange is red. So now I'm going to get my red, and I'm going to blend the red in at the bottom. And that is called a variegated wash, where you're layering colors, and it blends down. If you don't work fast enough and you let the water dry, you're going to get those kind of lines like that. So when you're doing variegated wash, you want to try and work as fast as possible. That's better. Variegated wash. For the last part, you guys should see a green box on your table. And in that green box, you'll see a white pencil, a white crayon, and an orange crayon. And we're going to be experimenting with resist. So resist means if we have areas in our painting that have highlight, we can obviously use the paper as a highlight, but we can also pregame and use these whites to get those highlights. So, get your white pencil. On the bottom bar, I want you to make some lines, going all the way across. And then with your crayon, start with the white one first, and you're going to make marks in the top halfway through. And then with the orange, you're going to continue that line with orange. Because you could really use this technique with any color of crayon, but this is a really good way to get highlights. And typically, people use what's called Frisket, which is like a glue that you paint ahead of time on your paper where the highlights are. But I like this because this is easier and it's easier to clean up and less mess. So, now, everybody needs to get their paper towel. Everybody should have a paper towel. And I want you to get with your brush. If you don't have blue in your palette, get some blue. Any blue. Just get some blue. You can use purple. And with your blue, now you're going to get the big reveal. Watch what happens when I put my watercolor over those lines. This top one was the crayon. You could use any color, but. So, now I'm going to do the pencil. So you can see the difference. I think that the crayon is, you get a much brighter, I would say, clearer line. I think that the color pencil looks a little bit more subtle. But you might have to press down harder or make it a dark color. Yeah. But I just want to show you both techniques. They're really nice, and I wanted you to. The reason why I said blue is because I put orange, which is the complement. Remember? The same thing I want you to do now is we're going to do a blotting technique. So everybody has their paper towel, and you're going to put water in this middle area for a white blot. So after you paint your surface, then you take your paper towel and you do what it says, you blot. And it picks up wherever the paper towel touches, leaving a cool texture. Wipe and blot. Okay? So that's a really good technique for like making grass or, these are all really good ways to help you make texture with watercolor. It's different. We're working kind of backwards. Remember, instead of adding white, we add water. And it's always good to start how we practice with the first exercise, going light to dark. If you go dark, you can't go backwards. I mean, we could paint acrylic white paint over it, but it's a different look. Okay. In semester 2, if you're taking painting 2, we're going to be working with acrylic paints and watercolors. But this is just a quick intro. The next step, when we come back next week, we're going to have different. These are all used candies, so I wouldn't eat them. People are going to be touching them. I also have toys, so you can do a still life. If you want to bring your own stuff in or your favorite candy, you can. We're going to be creating still life with candy and toys. We're going to do an outline drawing of it, and then we're going to paint it, and with using realistic color. And you'll be able to use all of these techniques in your painting. And then that will be due on block day where we do our final exam as well. Okay? So make sure after you get your names written on that, please bring it up here and turn it in.